minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Okay. All right. We're here. Hello. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the big show, everybody. You get the horn show. Tad and Jeff here. Good evening, my friend. How are you?
Good evening. No complaints. No complaints yourself.
Lots of complaints. So let's get the show started.
Got a lot of grievances.
I got a lot of problems with you people. It's gonna be like Festivus.
That's right.
No, we got a lot to cover, man. We got a lot to cover. The world does not cease to be stupid and ridiculous, and you know, I'm gonna jump right into it. Look, man, there are so many different stories that we could start with. It's hard to know exactly where to go, but let me start with this. You may have seen in the news that the government has been on the verge of shutting down. And they need to sign things to extend the debt ceiling and all these types of things to avoid a government shutdown. Well, in the latest sign that if you are a U.S. resident, your government hates you, the United States, if the government shuts down, they will continue to pay Ukrainian salaries and send money to Ukraine, but will furlough American citizens in the event of a government shutdown. So if Congress fails to pass a spending plan, the U.S. government will shut down, but will continue to fund all salaries and all money in the Ukraine. Federal employees in America, they will be furloughed and you will not be able to get paid. So yes, your tax dollars will be used to fund Ukrainian salaries while American citizens are forced to wait to be paid by the government while they shut down.
Feels right. I mean, why are we shocked at this? I'm going with my 7-year-old to the National Zoo in 2 Mondays from now. And it's already been, if the government shuts down, the zoo shuts down with it. So it will have to be rescheduled.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we'll send money over to another country, and we'll leave our. Again, is this not what we vote for? Is this not what we expect in this country anymore? Like, why are we surprised by this? Why are we surprised? I mean, you can be outraged all you want to be outraged, but until you start hitting them where it counts, nothing's going to change. They're just going to do whatever they want with our money. Again, we've talked about this. Yep. Every single dime they send to Ukraine is our money, is money that you have paid in, that I have paid in.
Yep.
It's not like the government's out here and investing, their money in something else, or they're making their own, inventions and selling them. No, They're just taking our money and doing whatever they feel they want with it, and they're getting away with it, and we don't care, apparently.
No, it seems to be fine, and I don't understand why, but it's true. And we talked about this in a previous episode, but I think it bears repeating. Recently 60 Minutes discovered that the U.S. is financing more than just weapons in Ukraine. The government is buying seeds, fertilizers, all to supply to farmers in Ukraine. They're paying the salaries of 57,000 first responders in Ukraine, and they're subsidizing small Ukrainian businesses. Why? Why in the world? What is the argument to be made for the U.S. government to subsidize small businesses in the Ukraine? I mean, if I want to start a small business, can I go ahead and have the government subsidize it? Now, I guess people are going to say, well, yes, you can, because you can go to the Small Business Administration. You can get a loan. But this isn't a loan. This isn't a loan. This is billions, now hundreds of billions of dollars being given to Ukraine. And the other thing is, if I wanted to get a business loan, I apply, I look at the terms, I decide if I like the terms, I go ahead and move forward with it. The government has not shown me the terms of the decision to send my money to Ukraine. There are no terms. They made the decision. I have been forced to accept their decision because there is zero recourse. I don't have the ability to say, yeah, you know what? I don't like that. I think I might want to send my money elsewhere. Nope, that's not an option. So explain to me how it is even legal. How is it even legal? What is the legal precedent for the government to be able to say, we can take hundreds of billions of dollars of tax money, taxpayer money, and do anything we want to do with it? Forget about how you justify it going to Ukraine or anywhere else. That's irrelevant. What is the legal precedent to say that the government can do anything that they want to do with taxpayer money? If they just decided tomorrow that the U.S. wanted to buy Antarctica with taxpayer money, they can, right? There is nothing. There is no recourse. Nothing can be done about it.
All right.
I don't get it.
No. I mean, they want to invest all their money in Pepe coin. I guess they can certainly do that if they want to, or any other, altcoin, crypto coin out there, I guess, if they really want. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've just lived with it for so long that it's like, you ever see those things on X, it's like name something that's just become, something illegal that's just become the norm, government spending our money on whatever they want, special interest groups, this and that, and, passing bills and putting stuff in there that has nothing to do with the bill because that's the only way you're going to vote. It's all just a joke at this point. It's disgusting. It definitely can't be what, our forefathers and the people that started this country had in mind. It's impossible. I mean, taxes really weren't even supposed to be a thing, right, except for times of war and things like that. And somehow we've normalized taking money, 30%, whatever it is, out of each and every American's paycheck to go and give to someone else. Again, I don't know. I'm sure there's probably way more stuff that we don't know, right? But yeah. I don't want to see the innocent people of Ukraine die.
No,
I definitely don't want to see that. But where is everybody else at? Like, aren't we supposed to be part of NATO? And aren't we supposed to be part of all these other, countries? Like, why are we giving all this money? Where's everybody else?
Why do we even have to get involved?
Right.
Like, the reality is, if we as a nation, we are a country. Ukraine is a country. Russia is a country. China is a country. So is Germany. So is France. Like, all of these places, right? Canada, Mexico. So why do we insist on getting involved in everyone else's business? I don't know for sure that I am, a pure isolationist, when it comes to, government policy. But daggone, man, you mean to tell me any two countries that get in a fight, we have to get in the middle of it, have to pick a side, and then have to throw money at the David fighting against the Goliath? We have to do that. And yet, if you look at the atrocities that have gone on in countries that magically just didn't have the natural resources that we had a need for, or didn't have strategic positioning, because what do you think the chances are that at the end of this, in, I don't know, a year, 2 years, something like that, you won't find out that there were deals made for military bases, U.S. military bases, to be installed in Ukraine, that we will be building military bases there. Strategic locations. We're paying for the right to have these things later, because we know daggone well that Russia's going to be starting other wars. potentially teaming up with China. We know Putin has been meeting with the head of China and all these things. So, like, we're going to need that strategic thing. Now, here's the thing. We could just take it. We could just say, hey, Ukraine, we're going to come in and we're going to build military bases there because that's just what we're going to do. And you'll deal with it or you won't, but it won't matter because you can't do anything about it. But instead, we're going to have them fight Russia and we're going to throw hundreds of billions of dollars at this to then get that same thing anyway. The result's the same. So, and we don't have a good track record of creating allies, long-term allies. We create short-term allies because when the money's flowing, everybody likes us. Guess what? For a little while, even Iraqis liked us. But do you know what it took? It was our dudes driving around in Humvees literally handing out stacks of cash. People were cool with taking that money. And then what happened after that? Death to America, burning flags, and terrorist attacks. Because people don't want to be occupied. These nations do not want us to get involved because they look at themselves as being autonomous. They are their own country. They are their own culture and their own people. And their government and their people have every right to fight in their own skirmishes with other countries over the things that they want to fight over. And the idea that Big Brother is always watching and has to decide to pick a side and who he wants to win and who he doesn't. Kuwait and Iraq. We decided, no, we've got to jump in and we've got to save Kuwait. For what reason? Well, you got to think it was strategic. You got to think it was because of oil. You got to think. Now, did it ever work out for us? Not very well, because those enemies that we made in Iraq then turned into other problems with Saudi Arabia and elsewhere. And then you had a lot of terrorism and all of these things. But all of these people are proud. You think the Ukrainian people aren't proud people? We know they're running in there to fight Russians. They're down to fight. But then it's, well, if only we could get money. Okay, you got $120 billion so far. And in case anyone thought that that was going to be it, the Pentagon, this is as of, what's today? So this was just in the last couple of days. The Pentagon has issued a warning to Congress that they are running low on funds for replacing weapons sent to Ukraine. Meanwhile, the White House spokesperson has issued a statement. Quote, Putin believes he can outlast us, but he is mistaken. We will soon deliver another aid package to Ukraine. So we're not done giving them money.
No.
And do you really think that Putin cares in the grand scheme of things? Because he's bleeding us dry the longer that this battle goes on.
Absolutely.
He's looking at it going, okay, so you mean to tell me all I have to do is continue this fight with you? You really think if Russia wanted to take over Ukraine that they couldn't have done it if they really wanted to?
Right. Yeah.
They have the firepower to have done it if they really wanted to do it. It doesn't need to take a year-long war for Russia to take Ukraine. Russia's way bigger, way more powerful, way wealthier, way more ruthless. They would have the ability. They could nuke the whole place if that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
They've chosen not to.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fired up tonight, man.
I don't blame you. I just, we know what the issue is. How do we fix it? What do we do? I mean, next November we vote out. But what's going to stop the next president from coming in and saying, well, yeah, we can't just jump out right away. We've got to.
Right.
And then there's going to be, if we do pull out right away, then there's going to be a lot of people that are going to end up dying more than likely. And then it's going to look like, well, but for us, being involved or pulling out. So here it is, bad Americans again. It's just a never ending cycle. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, besides just voting these guys out, but it's got to take more than just that. There has to be some sort of revolution or some sort of revolt for this stuff. Like, stop. Like, this is enough. Like, not only do you tax my paycheck, you tax the goods I buy. True. You tax, there's a tax for everything. You tax the property that I own. I pay taxes on the property that I buy. And then you tax on top of that. Like, it's insane when you stop and think about, but it's just become a scam that's become so normalized. And again, if it was all going, for, I don't know, healthcare for all, if we're, fine.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's now going, for this. I'm now still paying, $1,000 a month, even on a company sponsored, health insurance plan, that I'm paying taxes on. And it's just it's a never ending thing. So yeah, fine. Tax the mess out of us, do all this stuff and make the money go for good. That's helping the country. Like I think I would be willing to probably give up some of my money if it meant every single person in our country has access to healthcare, has access to, free healthcare. I'm
Let
even
it
saying
improve
like
our lives in some way.
some
Our
way,
lives
shape, or
of
form.
the U.S. residents, our citizens. Let it improve life for us.
Yes, that's exactly it. Fine, I'm okay with that. But you're taking my money and giving it to small businesses in Ukraine? Like what you shut down the country in the United States and wiped out all of these small businesses. And now you're saying, yeah, we want to make sure that we protect the small businesses in Ukraine. You didn't even protect the small businesses in your own freaking country. And you took that small business's taxes to give now to the Ukrainian people. Again, I don't want to see anyone die. I don't want there to be wars and things like this. But I also know it's not necessarily everything doesn't have to be our fight. We don't have to figure everything out. We don't know everything in this country. And you're just using our money to fund wars, essentially, is what you're doing. For what? And you're not even saying this is why you're doing it. Make it make sense to me that why, a coffee shop in Ukraine, it's most important that you take money out of my paycheck and give to them. Like I need to know the importance of all that. But you're not.
Nope.
Trust me, bro.
Yeah.
And again,
we talked about it
on this. We talked about on the show that Republicans and Democrats who denied a bill that would have forced them to open up the books. They voted that down. So no, they're just saying no. We don't have to show you what our money is going for.
Yeah. No, they don't want any accountability. And I looked because we talked about before about like, well, why hasn't more money been able to go to Maui and the people that have been displaced there and the deaths that have been caused and the destruction? So far, FEMA has dispersed $21.5 million for individual and household assistance. That's made up of $10.4 million in housing assistance and over $11 million in other needs assistance for daily expenditures. 20 million, 21 million. Million. We've given 120 billion to Ukraine. We're funding their small businesses. We are buying the seeds and farm equipment for their farmers. We are supplying them not only with weapons, but with straight up money. We are paying the salaries of 57,000 first responders in Ukraine, not Americans working in Ukraine, Ukrainians, they're first responders. And we've given 20 million, that's a rounding error, $20 million to Maui.
Yeah.
How is that even possible? And again, nobody pays attention.
Nobody
and it's
cares.
because
It's
we're distracted.
Always.
We're distracted by everything. Everything is about distractions. We have a government that is in the business of creating distractions so that
100%.
way people just stay placated. They want you to be watching football and keeping up with where Taylor Swift is and being on TikTok and doing all of these types of things. And then the moment that somebody like an Elon Musk changes the rules on Twitter, now X, to where it actually opens up more free speech and less censorship, then they need to be shut down right away, right? And we need to sue him, and we need to get in his finances, and we need to do everything to be able to stop that from happening. So you want everyone distracted, but only in the way that you want them distracted. And then the moment that they look into and they start to see what's happening kind of even just a tiny bit behind the curtain, then say, well, we got to shut that down. It doesn't matter if it's the world's richest man. We've got to find a way to shut it down. And we'll tie him up in all of this stuff. And meanwhile, you heard, or you may have heard, that they just decided that like something like 80% of the indictments against Trump are going to be dropped now because of the statute of limitations. Everyone already knew going in. It was all like all of this is theater. It's all being put on to create this end result. And all of us that sit on the sideline and observe it are just willfully ignorant or too busy with our own lives to try to figure out how are we going to pay our bills? How are we going to feed our families? How are we going to be able to take care of things when they're so difficult? And you create this not only dependence, but in many cases, generational dependence on the government to be able to take care of you. And, you know, these things I see people all the time that talk about like, and we've talked about on the show, like this idea of like, you know, the inequality and, you know, white privilege or any number of different things that you can talk about. And I'm not going to sit here and say that that doesn't exist in some degree, in some form, and in many ways. But this idea that it's impossible to create your own success. It's not possible. Unless you were just born to rich people, rich parents, unless you were just somehow you couldn't possibly be successful. So there, if you've said that, you've created inherently a victim mentality, right? I never even had a chance. I never had a shot. I can't, no one can blame me for anything I didn't accomplish because everything wasn't perfectly lined up for me to accomplish it, right? But we were talking, you know, earlier, you know, before the show about the NFL. If a kicker goes in to make a kick in a game, does he not kick if it's windy? And then if he misses the kick, is it just like, well, what do you want me to do, man? The wind's blowing. Like how? Like what? It's like, no, man. That's the job. The job is you deal with what's in front of you and you figure out a way to make it work. And we see so many stories, so many scenarios where people go out and they, you know, whatever. I hate to use the term, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But the reality is, you have the ability to go out and start a business. You have the ability to go out and do these things. But this idea. And it's no different than during the pandemic, right? You saw these things of like, oh, everyone's being shut down, right? The government's shutting everything down. And then when they come back, companies like Discover and lots of other companies, everything was about subsidizing or sending business to Black-owned businesses. I don't have any issue with Black-owned businesses. My issue is, why would I care that it's a Black-owned business? I don't even know who owns any of the businesses. They could all be Black-owned businesses for all I know. If I go into a business, I don't go, excuse me, do you have a photo of the owner of this establishment? I'd like to get a feel for his ethnic background if I could. I don't know. So why does it have to be this way? And then, but what are you creating? Dependence. And so, you know, and it's the same thing with the illegal immigration that we've, you know, been talking about on the show.
Well, it's not only dependence, but it's also sowing seeds of anger.
Yes, very well said.
Because you're now saying that this company, you know, because they're Black owned, is more important than this mom and pop that's Asian owned or white owned or whatever else. So it's sowing those seeds of division, which isn't. You know, it isn't something that is overlooked. Like there's so many, and that's on both sides. You pull up something and be like, oh, look what these young black men did. You know, they love to call them scholars and things like that. Look what these young scholars are doing, and you know, you see a 30-second clip and you're like, okay, well, what's the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
Or you see a police officer pulling over someone, like, well, look, there it is. They just shot someone. You know, like the black girl that was stealing all the liquor from the liquor store, 6 months pregnant, and you'd be like, oh well, you know, we're rioting now because the police shot. And then you see the video, she tried to run him over. You know, and it's like, you know, but that's it. Like it's this whole DEI thing and everything else. Like, all this is doing is just sowing more division in this country because you can't have unity and be in control of everyone. You have to control the people that are Republicans, the people that are Democrats. You have to control the whites. You have to control the blacks, the Asians. You have to have them controlled. You can't have all of us unite, because clearly we could just overtake and do whatever we wanted if everyone is united. But we can't do that. So don't think that, like, hey, we're only supporting black-owned businesses is something that's, that they're doing because they really, really care about the black person. It's simply just to piss off everyone else. And that's all it really is. And we've seen it. Like, you're doing this, but you are literally tanking stocks. We think of Bud Light. Right. You're literally just tanking stocks. But that's not done accidentally. Again, you can't tell me that Bud Light thought it was a great idea to have a transgender person be their spokesperson, regardless if it was just, to be on their, sponsoring their whatever, this was all done on purpose. Like, it was done because they had to do this. This isn't something that that they just come up with and didn't think, our demographic is really not transgender people. We talked about this. Like, they're not drinking Bud Light, nor probably are they still drinking Bud Light. They're not like now, oh, well, we're going to support, Bud
really
Light
came around.
This, right? Right. No, they're still not. This was done because they had to do this. This is something that they were now forced to do. And maybe they didn't expect it to backlash this much, but but this was done on purpose.
Well, and I mean, look, I want to be super clear. And I'm going to speak for both of us here. Neither of us are saying, they're what, like the government shouldn't help black-owned businesses. Like, no, I couldn't care less. What we're saying is, why? Even if you are a black-owned business or an Asian-owned business or any other type of thing, if I were Asian, full disclosure for anyone just listening on the podcast, I'm not Asian, but if I were, I would not want people to come to my establishment only because I was Asian. Right? Now, unless it's a Chinese food restaurant or something like that, right? Maybe you care more about that than if I was German. You might not care, think that I'm going to have a great, Asian food. But outside of that, like, why? Like, we create this scenario where people are defined by their race and their gender before they're just looked at as people. It's like you are people second or third. You are white, black, Asian, Hispanic first, and most importantly, apparently. Secondly, you are male, female, or God forbid I even asked the question, or some mix of trans and any number of other adjectives. That's all second. Third, you're Republican or Democrat. You're liberal or conservative. Fourth, you are a human being. You're a person. But that is the fourth thing on the list.
Seems to me someone lost his life over something very similar that he wanted people to judge other folks on. And if somehow that's completely just lost like any relevance.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane to think that you're just going to say, again, I remember seeing the commercials from Discover specifically, but lots of other people did this, right? But it was essentially like, we need to find local black-owned businesses, and those are the ones that need our support. And I think, objectively, if anyone listening, step outside yourself. I don't care if you're white, black, whatever. That doesn't matter, right? Step outside yourself and think for a moment, if you aren't that, how that makes you feel. If you were a struggling Asian business owner, and every time you're turning on the TV, you're seeing commercials about supporting black-owned businesses, you're going, well, wait a minute, I'm struggling just as much as they are. Like, wait a minute. So now you're telling me that my bakery shouldn't be supported because they need to support a black-owned bakery that's a mile up the street from me, that previously we were friendly and things were cool, but now it's like I'm the problem, I'm the bad guy, and those are the ones that need to be supported.
Yeah.
But why don't I need to be supported? We talked a little bit ago. We're subsidizing small businesses in the Ukraine. Are we only subsidizing black-owned businesses in Ukraine? Are we only subsidizing native Ukrainian businesses in Ukraine? No. We're subsidizing small businesses across the board. We're not looking to break it down by race or ethnic group or gender or anything else to pick and choose who we're supporting. We're just supporting small businesses. But here in this country, it's more important to divide it all up and then figure out the ones that you're going to get the focus on. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't seem to be able to look at it with clear eyes and recognize that they are literally just buying your vote. They are betting that you aren't smart enough to pay attention to it.
That's exactly right.
That's incredibly insulting. It's pandering, which is one of the things that we hate the most on this show. But they're betting on the fact that you either don't know or don't care.
Yep.
Either one.
We've talked about this. When you have a mom, with 3 kids, 4 kids, and you're getting that public assistance that you need to survive and you need to live. If you got someone coming in and saying, no, we want people to do better for themselves, and the other guy's like, no, we're still going to give away free money. What are you going to do? You're living free money to survive. You're taking that money. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're, again, buying the vote. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, you already know how your votes are broke down, and you know which votes you have to get. And this is both sides. Let's not pretend like this is just a Democratic situation or a Republican situation. 100%. You know what votes you need, and you're just going to pander to it. Again, the more divided you make this country, the easier it is to control everyone. And that's exactly what it is. It's just a control thing. So,
well, and here's the thing. Let's take it a step further now. Target has just announced that it will close 9 stores in major cities across 4 states because of theft and organized crime. We talk all the time about the way that San Francisco has completely collapsed as a city. It's now so dangerous that government employees are told to work from home because it's too dangerous for them to go to work at a federal government building in downtown San Francisco.
In broad daylight. Yeah.
Yeah, middle of the day, broad daylight. So, Target, major store, right? They're having so many issues with theft and organized crime, they're going to close 9 stores in major cities across 4 states. Now, I'm not going to make you guess the cities and the states here. I'm just going to tell you them, but you can tell me if any of them come as a surprise to you. East Harlem in New York City. 2 locations in Seattle, 3 locations in Portland, and 3 locations in San Francisco and Oakland. Anything there surprising?
No.
These are the places that everyone is shutting down their stores because the cities are in complete free fall. They're collapsing because of crime, because of drugs, and because of lenient policing, and I'm saying that incredibly generously. And so what's happening is you see it all the time. My God, can you imagine that literally right now, at any time, day or night, because I've seen it, you can go onto TikTok, you can go on to X, and you can just type in, store robbery, New York City. And people are literally standing in the CVS just filming 5 people busting through the door and just taking everything. The Apple store, breaking in, stealing everything.
Yeah.
It's commonplace. Security stands there off to the side. Store policy is no one's to engage with them at all. And police don't even do anything. There's no issue here. You're just going to let them go. Yeah. And so what happens? Well, then it becomes... You gain momentum because now someone who would have never thought to do this in the past because they wouldn't want to go to prison is now looking at going, oh, wait, it's not even a problem anymore. I can just go in. I saw one the other day. There were like 25 people busted the glass doors out of the front of the store and just went in and just started grabbing flat screen TVs and walking right out. And everyone's just standing around watching them do it. It's insanity. Yeah. And so a company like Target in all the cities that you would think is now shutting down their stores because it isn't worth it because of organized crime and theft.
Again, just take a look at this. What's the old saying? Look from I don't even know. Just essentially take a step back and look, through a bigger lens. And again, this is all control. It's not an accident that they've lowered the penalties for thefts, where they've raised the amount of money that you would have to steal in order to be charged with a crime. It's none of that, right? This is encouraging people to go and do this essentially now. This isn't a surprise. This is now happening in Philadelphia. We're seeing, major looting going on there this past weekend, but this is all done for a purpose and a reason. And I've seen it recently now start peeking its head out. So now you've got grocery stores that are shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have people coming out and saying, people in power and, Congress, we need to have a grocery store for these people. Well, guess what it's going to be? It's going to be a government-owned location.
You better believe it.
And this is how exactly it all starts. So before you can control all this because you can have security guards that can arrest someone, that can detain someone. Now we're being told, look, they stole $300 worth of cosmetics. The best thing I've ever seen is people saying, it's not a life. They have insurance. Do you think insurance companies just go and pay stuff out and there not be any ramifications to any of this stuff? Yeah. What happens? Insurance companies, yes, pay it out. They don't pay the full thing out. Like, that's the thing you don't understand. You go in and you go to a restaurant and you smash up all the plates and everything else. Yeah, well, you have insurance, but those plates are 3 years old. There's depreciation that gets involved with that.
Yep.
So now the plate that costs $5, they're going to give you $2 for. Well, you still have to replace that plate. Now, remember, everything in this country has gone up. So those plates that were once $5 a piece are now $8 a piece. You've just gotten $2 for it. So yeah, you have insurance, but insurance doesn't make you 100% whole in this situation. There's depreciation that goes along with it, just like a car. Yep. You wreck and you bust your tires up. They're not putting 4 brand new tires on there if your 4 tires were bald. They're going to say, you had 1/8 tread on this. We're going to give you 1/8 the value of new tires. That's the way insurance works. And then after they're done paying 1/8 of that, they're going to raise your rates up.
Yep.
Or you're going to become uninsurable because no one wants to take that risk on. And so now you've got businesses that are forced to close because no one's going to insure them, or the insurance is so high that they can't afford it.
Yeah. Or if you're that restaurant, what do you have to do? If you are able to stay in business, you got to raise your prices.
So now your prices go up. And now the people that wanted to eat there before are now paying 20%, 30% more for their food. And it's just a vicious cycle. So now what are we going to have to do? We can't have these places. So now let the government come in and help you, and that's how it was just so creepy to read this guy, and you have to forgive me because I had it and I was going to send it to you and I just, completely got, sidetracked, but it was pretty much like, hey, we have to do whatever we need to do to get groceries to these people. And the idea is let's have us do this, not let's train up people in this area of how to run a business. It was, let us do it. And so what are you going to have? You're going to have a grocery store that doesn't get stocked well because the government doesn't pay the bill, or the government, can't get this or that contract for this food. And so, I mean, it's like how no one can see this kind of stuff is just beyond me. These store closings isn't done on an accident. This is done on purpose. We don't want people succeeding. We want to be in charge of all this stuff.
Well, and to give you an idea, Target previously said that it was expecting to lose $500 million this year due to rising theft. Theft alone, $500 million lost. That's just from Target. Now, here's an interesting thing. So we were talking earlier about, store closings in San Francisco. Nordstrom and Whole Foods closed stores in San Francisco. Dollar Tree even said it might stop selling certain products in some stores because they were being targeted for theft. But here's where it gets interesting. So they're talking about, the loss and the theft and all of these things. Besides more security and occasionally locking cases of products, Target said it's partnering with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security investigations to combat retail theft and making significant investments into cyber defense. So what's happening? It's Target now partnering with the government to be able to then...
Yeah, exactly. Who caused all this issue in the first place.
Exactly. Here's the thing, right? You watch the old mob movies and, the gangsters would go around to all the local store owners. They would shake them down, right? And they would say, hey, listen, for a certain amount of money, you're going to be protected, right? So I'll make sure you're taken care of. You're going to pay me on a monthly basis. Now your store's under my protection and no one's going to mess with you. And it was kind of like, oh, that's a very old school way to do it. That's the mafia type thing. Well, guess who the mafia is now? It's the government. The government is now going to be able to go to Target and any of these other stores and say, hey, sounds like things are crazy over there. You know what? We can help you out, man. Like just come on over. Let's set up some contracts. Let's do this. We'll help you out with cybersecurity stuff. We'll set you up with Homeland Security. We're going to give you the best things so that way you're covered and you're taken care of. Don't you worry. Once you've partnered with us, you're under our protection.
Yeah.
And it's a scary thing.
And guess what they're going to put in? They're going to put in these high-tech cameras that reads everyone's faces.
That's right.
That can now read and see what every single purchase someone has. And yeah, they can probably do that now, but they're going to have an easier time doing that.
Yep.
And be able to see, oh, this person's doing this person's doing that. And yeah, it's just more and more personal freedoms going away. So it's going to be, you're getting your face scanned as you walk into Target. Did you ever steal anything from here? Oh, you stole something as a 13-year-old,
Yeah.
You're banned. You have to go over to this place and buy your stuff. So,
well, and I got something better for you. Once they have that info, don't think that there won't be U.S. government partnerships with Google and Facebook and everyone else to then sell that data to know the products that you're purchasing.
Sure.
To now be able to then target you for advertising, but it's going to be government safe advertising. So when you get this through Amazon or through Google or through Apple or Facebook or whoever, they all do the same stuff. It's going to be, well, this is safe because it's through the government, right? This was from a pure government contract. These are government backed companies. And in case anyone thinks that we are exaggerating any of this stuff, which I'm literally reading you things, when I'm quoting some of this stuff to you, it's coming from CNN, right? So just so that anyone knows, when I'm saying these things and talking about these store closings and all the information I'm just giving you about Target partnering with the Department of Homeland Security, this is CNN. This is no conspiracy theory stuff. Crime statistics from the Oakland Police Department show that commercial burglaries jumped 76% from 2021 to 2022 and are up 56% when compared to the 5-year average. So, you don't think a 76% jump in commercial burglaries isn't going to impact the way businesses are run? Of course it makes a massive impact. And whoever the government wants to say that they're backing, and I really don't care if they're black-owned business, Asian, whatever else, who are they backing? They're backing the businesses that are in the same neighborhoods that they're allowing the burglaries to occur in.
Yep.
And so on one hand, it's like, hey, we want to help. And on the other hand, we're going to cut your throat and make you more dependent on us. And so, yeah, it's a scary, scary situation that's happening. And we're continuing to allow it to happen because we're so inundated with news and information that we can't tell any of it apart. And right. So we're just assuming that someone else will figure it out. And look, we do need to touch on this. So I'm just going to introduce it now as something to talk about, because the great banshee, Dianne Feinstein, that has now passed away, who has been haunting the halls of Congress for however long already, and it has been in a position to influence votes and do all things. She's passed away at 90 years old. She hasn't known what's happened for years. And we were talking about this in Twitter thread. She'd get elected tomorrow if she were still alive.
That's exactly it. Get elected tomorrow. And she died. She voted the day before she died. How about that? She voted on something.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And she's leaving behind over $100 million fortune. Now, in case there's any confusion, her job pays, it was around $200,000 a year.
Sure.
She's been doing it for 20, 30 years, whatever the exact number of time is. I don't have it right in front of me. But there's no way that you can do the math that $200,000 a year for 30, 40, she wasn't doing it for 100 years. It doesn't come close to equaling $100+ million fortune. How do you make that? Right? How does that happen? And again, people just stand by. We're standing by. We're just allowing it to happen.
Like, she's not making $20 million per speaking engagement.
Right. Yeah.
But again, it's exactly what it is. We are standing behind. We're standing to the side, and we're saying, like, it's just, again, there's another thing that's a scam that's become so normalized that we don't even see it. We don't even think about it.
Yep.
The fact that someone making $200,000 a year as a public servant had amassed $100 million. Now, if you were either really, really good at investing, you got in on Bitcoin early, or you got on Amazon early, or something nefarious was going on.
Yeah. There's no other way around it, right? I mean, how can you say she's a senator? She dies at 90, and how are you worth $100 million? And you can start to break it down, and they're looking at it now that her wealth includes millions held in a blind trust, and she has all this kind of stuff. She also owned a condominium in Hawaii worth $5 million, and blah blah blah, all kinds of. But again, how is that possible? Why would that be happening? And how are you able to do it with so little money being made, right? And so, again, it's her pension from the city of San Francisco is valued between $500,000 and $1 million. Meaning that's because that she was mayor of San Francisco in 1979. So you can become mayor of San Francisco in 1979, and you're going to get $1 million pension? Like, what's going on? But needless to say, none of that stuff is how she actually made the money. Right. And so, you look at this and you go, how are we allowing all of these things to happen? And we continue to stand by, and we continue to watch it. And then we wonder, like, well, why is the situation the way that it is? Why is this country in the shape that it's in? How could it not be? How could it not be in the shape that it's in? You have people that politics was never supposed to be a job. It was never supposed to be a job. And the government now is so massive. We're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars per day just on interest on our loans. But the government does not make any of its own money. It takes our money. So as it grows and expands and it does all of these things, what ends up having to happen? Well, we're the ones that have to pay for all of it. And then when you look at another little kind of crooked thing that I saw that I really enjoyed, the Baltimore Archdiocese files for bankruptcy before law on abuse lawsuits takes effect. The Archdiocese of Baltimore filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy days before a new state law goes into effect, removing the statute of limitations on child sex abuse claims and allowing victims to sue their abusers decades after the fact. So what do? They file bankruptcy. Now, how are you allowed to do this? Like, again, it's just disgusting. And the church, literally attorneys and advocates, how you could be an advocate of this is beyond me. They said that the church is simply trying to protect its assets and silence abuse victims by halting all civil claims against the Archdiocese and shifting the process to bankruptcy court, which is a less transparent forum. What that means is they can hide their money and it doesn't get investigated in the same way. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And so it's just another scenario where you look at this and you go, okay, so someone figured out we should change the law and actually allow abuse victims to sue whenever they want. But then you also allowed the church to just say, well, okay, no problem. We'll just file bankruptcy and then we won't have to give anyone anything. Yeah.
Right.
How is that possible? Like, what is going on, man? And again, you know where that story was? NPR. I did not see this story anywhere else. Yeah. I tried to look up information for it. You can hardly find it. But this is what's out there. This is what's happening. And again, you would look at that and you go, oh, that's disgusting. Why would that ever be allowed? It's a daily thing. It's happening all the time. These types of things are happening everywhere, all the time. And everyone is figuring out ways to be able to just protect themselves and screw over anyone else. And it's scary that we have a government that does not work for us. In fact, in many cases, they're actively working against us. And the reason is because we've reached this tipping point where now the government has to just care about itself because it won't be able to survive otherwise. It's gotten so big, it requires so much to feed the machine that now it can't care about the individual people. It has to now do, like everyone's worried about AI, right? Like, oh, what if it's going to start to become self-aware? It's going to start to take over. Yeah. That's what happened to the government. The government's gotten so big that now the only thing the government has the ability to care about is the government and its own interests. It can't care about the people anymore because if you cared about the people, you'd be hurting your own interests. The government and the people were fine when everything was small enough that they could grow in parallel. But once you took us off the gold standard, which is a whole other story, but once you took us off the gold standard, once you started printing money whenever you wanted to, once you started playing around with formulas to try to control inflation, once you started having employment and income for people grow at a far, far, far lower pace than cost of goods so that you could create debt and create a scenario where everyone was in debt for everything. You then can't do all of that and then also care about those people.
Right.
There's no way you can't have that.
Doesn't
both
work
ways.
that way. Right. No. Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Scary, man. Scary.
No, it is. Stuff. And again, it's just one of those things that's like, we see it. So like, I know we're not the only ones that see this stuff, but what's the answer? I mean, what is the answer? I don't know. There has to be one. You would think, you would hope, as it take, someone, not us, but someone, in that realm to run and really change the government, change how we do it. But this isn't something we'd see in our lifetime.
No. The system is in place to prevent. Right, this is like the Matrix, right? Where it's like that, it turns out, spoiler alert, that like the thinking was that like Neo's a virus, right? Like a computer virus in the system. And it's the same way. The system is designed and set up to protect its own interests and to protect itself. So the idea, and this was like, when Trump was running originally and he was saying he's going to go in and drain the swamp and do all these things, and people liked that idea. Regardless of what your feelings were on Trump or are on Trump, that's irrelevant. It wouldn't matter who it was. Like, you never heard Biden say, I'm going to go in and drain the swamp, right? But if he had, it would be the exact same thing. There's only so much you can do because the system is put in place to protect itself from anyone being able to actually change it. It's no different than we talk all the time about how you have to have term limits. We have to have term limits. The ghost of Dianne Feinstein still floating around the halls at 90 years old is insanity.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to have term limits, but the reality is, who's going to put them in? Well, you'd have to vote, and the people that are voting for them are the ones that would be hurt by them. So they're not going to do that. It's not hard to figure it out.
No. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy stuff, man. So anyway, we're going to get ready to wrap this up here before too long. But do you have anything else that you wanted to touch on? I know we had other things, but it's probably too much to even dive into tonight.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, and when we were doing the sports show, but we got carried away. Have you seen this Trevor Bauer situation?
Yes.
I mean, this is if there's anything that this has taught us, is that guilty until proven innocent in the United States 100% exists and probably always will.
Yeah.
And, this guy lost millions upon millions of dollars.
I mean, let's set it up, right? This is a Major League Baseball pitcher, a very, very good Major League Baseball pitcher who got accused of sexual assault. I'll let you take it away, but that's, that's...
So it was actually, accused of not just sexual assault. I mean, it was bad, choking and abuse just abuse and everything else. The guy loses his job. Essentially gets released by the Dodgers, essentially gets banned, from Major League Baseball, ends up going and playing overseas. And I don't know, Taiwan, China. I can't even remember. It's one of those places. And just now came out with everything that shows this was all nothing but a setup.
Yep. That
this woman, there's texts that this woman has of like, my next victim, and realizing he's worth $51 million. Right. And, the day that he was supposedly have choked her out, she is there. He's dead asleep with an eye mask on, and she's sitting there with just this awful grin on her face.
Yeah. And showing off that she's in bed with him and everything.
Yeah, and all of it was a lie. And everyone just rushed. Again, everyone just rushed to condemn this guy, because you want to be the first one that says this is wrong, get rid of him. You got Ken Rosenthal, who's a big person in Major League Baseball, and you've got all these guys that just came out and now just eating crow, but it's the damage was already done. Yep. Because you have to be the first person to condemn something. And you can't in this country say, can we wait till all the facts come out? Can we wait till, can we wait until we hear everything before we condemn this guy? Do we know this happened? Do we have proof of this happening? But you can't do that in this country because every single person that's against him, in which rightfully, if he was guilty of even a third of what he was accused of, by all means, he should never be allowed to pitch again. He should be in jail.
Yep.
But no one in this country, or no one is allowed to come out and say, can we get the facts first before we do all this?
Well, see, here's the thing, right? If you say that, number one, it must mean that you don't believe victims.
Yep.
Which is worse than whatever he could have done for you to not instantly believe someone who's a victim. And then secondarily, and maybe equally sad, well, by the time that we get the facts, the story might not be as big. You're not going to get as many clicks. There won't be as many views. That's not like the time to do it is to be the first to get the story out there. That's when there's going to be the most interest and most attention and everything else. That's when you have to do it. If you actually took your time and you got all the information, well, it's already been reported by everyone, and then everyone's burned out about hearing about it, and then it doesn't matter. Just like the story about him now being found to be clearly not at fault will be nowhere near as big as the story was when everything happened to him.
Because I bet you guarantee you that 80% of the people would have no clue that all the charges got dropped. Her attorneys actually came to him and said, hey, can we just drop this? And it was essentially, but he was still allowed to tell his side of the story, which tells you how bad the evidence was against her. she was denied a restraining order, which never happens.
No.
Ever
if a woman
happens.
goes in to get a restraining order, you're getting a restraining order basically 100% of the time.
The burden of proof on something like that is so minuscule, and yet it took 2 years for this to be able to come out. And he even said so himself, like, yeah, I was going to lose way more money than she ever even considered paying me back. But it was it was the principle of it. It was everything else. I'm not going to take a plea deal. I'm not going to, settle this as hush money. I'm not going to do it. And good for him.
Yeah.
He essentially ruined a potential Hall of Fame career to have to defend something that was so baseless. And just, and again, everyone that jumped on this guy and, essentially, again, guilty until he had to prove himself innocent. And he had the proof the whole time. He just wasn't able to come out and say any of the stuff because that's not how the court systems work, And it was like, what's the appropriate punishment for this woman? Like, she surely can't just walk away with her tail between her legs and say, my bad. Like, how is this not jail time? How is this not wasting of resources and filing false reports? Like, how is this not something that we, there's real victims out there that go through this, and now you've put the seed of doubt even more so in people's minds. So when something really does happen, it's like, well, did it? I don't know.
No, you hurt every victim's claim. You hurt the way that they're being looked at when you do something like this.
100%.
I'll give credit to our friend Michelle Tafoya, who was on the show recently, because I actually saw this because Michelle had reposted on her X account the video that Trevor Bauer put out explaining everything. That's where I saw it. And I'll tell you, Michelle had a very interesting thing. Like her tweet about it said that this is why we can't just automatically believe all women, that is the wrong thing to do. And again, that's coming from not only a woman, but a very high profile, very successful woman who worked in a completely male dominated industry for the entirety of her career, many decades. And, if she says that, you have to look at it and go, okay, yeah, maybe there's something there, right? That's not just some middle-aged guy saying that somewhere.
Right.
That's a high profile woman who says that. And I mean, why isn't that the case? Like, why would there be? And again, I am not in any way, shape, or form defending, anything. If someone's wrong, like you said, if Trevor Bauer had done this, man, lock him up, throw away the key. Like, that's as simple as that. But there are two sides to every story. And the idea that we're not even interested in hearing the other side, the possibility that maybe what we're seeing online or reading in the newspaper or whatever the case may be, that maybe there's any more to the story, like, that's just crazy to think that we shouldn't investigate that further and that we should automatically take every person at their word all the time, because we don't do that in any other scenario.
Right.
We don't do that. Right. I mean, why, if that were the case, earlier we were talking about, like things with the government. Well, the whole January 6th craziness, right? What if they all just came out and said, no, I wasn't there. Anyone who was there just said, no, I was there. Well, okay, take them at their word. They said they weren't there. It doesn't matter. Why are you trying to look at videotape? Why are you trying to investigate this? They specifically said they weren't there. You shouldn't have to look into it anymore. Why aren't you believing the victims? It's just like, there has to be a common sense application. Anyone who is accused of any crime, you have to be able to look at it from a common sense perspective and say, okay, well, before we're going to make a guy lose his career. And I know there's going to be some jerk who listens to this and says, yeah, but earlier you said he's worth $51 million, so he's doing just fine. If you feel that way, seriously, screw you.
Yep.
You're completely dead wrong on this. And you really need to look at yourself as a human being and figure out where you went wrong. Because the fact of the matter is, this guy lost his reputation. He lost his career. He lost the way that he earns his money and takes care of his family. And in many cases, for a lot of people in that type of a high profile job, he lost his identity. And then after having your reputation dragged through the mud, after having, I guarantee you, everyone but his very closest friends completely turned their back on him. And everyone badmouthed him to everyone that they knew. Imagine having to turn on the TV and anything that you read and every Google alert with your name is about you being a rapist and a sexual assaulter and a scumbag and just a horrible person who needs to be locked up. And you know you didn't do anything wrong and you can't say anything about it for years.
Yep.
And you're going to say, well, he's rich, so it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you said it perfectly well. If that's how you feel, screw you. Like you're an awful human being as well. So good for him. I'm glad it comes out. I mean, way too late.
Yes,
just to show you how backed up and how just awful the court systems are. That there's proof of this stuff, and we've heard text messages.
Yeah.
And it takes this long for this guy to get any type of vindication or justification. And then, And then one more thing, because we are way late. Mr. Jamaal Bowman. Sir. If you are too dumb to know that a fire alarm doesn't open doors, I probably don't need you serving our country. What fire alarm have you ever pulled that magically opens doors up? Sir, and you didn't know that it was going to set the alarm off for the whole building? What do you think? This is just a personal door alarm?
Yeah. I mean, fire alarms are not typically discreet. Like, they're pretty clearly marked because they want you to know where the fire alarm is, because they know if you're pulling it, it's because there's an emergency and you're trying to save lives. And during your panic, they wouldn't want it to be disguised to look like a flower pot or something. They want it to be very clearly marked that this is what it is. I mean, everyone knows the story, right? Like we're talking this like everybody is aware of this.
I have to assume that they know. If not, look it up. It's great, and the excuses to me are worse than just him saying, "Yeah, I was a rebel. I wanted to delay this vote."
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, "Well, I didn't know how the door opened." You thought pulling the fire alarm was the best way to get the door open?
Well, yeah, like why would that even be? Like why would that be your response? Like why would it be like, how could you pull the fire alarm? I thought the door would open. Well, like there's no follow up to say, how would you have? Why would you think the door would open? Yeah. And also, you work here. You go through the door
this is
every
your
day.
First day on the job. And the people that make excuses and was like, yeah, this could be very confusing. I don't understand how people aren't seeing his side of the story. What are you talking? Because we're not all idiots.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know that he did this to delay voting or what he may have done this for. If he just did this on accident because he really thought that's the best way to open the door, maybe think about who you vote for next time.
Yeah.
Because that's not a bright man. I'm sorry.
No.
There's never been a time
to figure out how to open a door.
There's never been a time I've tried to open the door and been like, well, maybe it'll open if I pull the fire alarm.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much either push or pull.
Push or pull, and if it doesn't, then I'll presume that it's just locked and I'm not supposed to go that way. I've never thought, well, crap, man, I'm late. I got to get out of here. Let me try this.
I just don't. So it's funny because I'm reading this article and now, I mean, it just continues to get worse for this guy because he's been called out again on Monday for a statement that he issued condemning his office's, quote, messaging guidance on him pulling the fire alarm, which referred to his Republican colleagues as Nazis. So now he is saying, I just became aware that in our messaging guidance, there was inappropriate use of the term Nazi without my consent. He wrote, I condemn the use of the term Nazi out of its precise definition. it's important to specify the term Nazi to refer to members of the Nazi Party and neo-Nazis.
Oh, cool. What?
Yeah, what are you doing?
So his people that put it out was like, oh yeah, these bunch of Nazi Republicans thinking he's doing this on purpose. Is that like pretty much what the messaging was? Then he's like, no, we should make a point to only call Nazis when they're really Nazis.
That's what you get out of it. So like, cool, he pulls the fire alarm. His office sends out talking points to encourage Democrats to deflect it by discussing Nazi Republicans. Then his office deletes the talking points because they leaked out and then he got mocked. And then he comes out and says, well, I didn't know anything about this. Nobody ran the Nazi thing by me.
I
I'm not the problem here.
Oh my gosh, man. Again, there's another episode of Veep, right? Like this is exactly another episode of the Veep. I swear this is like a simulation that we're living in. This is the Truman Show meets Veep. It's just unbelievable. Like just unbelievable. Like again, I don't know. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't even matter why he pulled the alarm. Yeah. It's the fact that the door was locked and he thought the best way to get the door open would have been to pull the fire alarm and that it wouldn't trigger the whole entire building. That the fire alarm was specifically to pull to open a door. If that's your thought process, why are you in charge of my money? Why are you in charge of anything besides taking my ticket at a movie theater or something?
Anything other than pulling fire alarms, really? I mean, that's the only thing you've proven.
He probably couldn't even work in a movie theater because it'd be like, hey, sir, how do we get out of here? I'm like, I don't know, just try to go that way and pull that alarm there and see what happens. It should work.
Pull the alarm. It always works.
Like and the people that are just taking up for this it's just mind-boggling. Like you cannot be this far in the pocket for Democratic people that you are making an excuse that the guy thought pulling the fire alarm would help open a locked door and that it wouldn't trigger the whole entire building, that somehow this locked door can only be opened by pulling the fire alarm. And there's no other way that he could get to where he's going besides pulling the fire alarm.
Yeah, because what scenario do fire alarms it's like a skeleton key that just opens up every door like automatically? Like that isn't even in Indiana Jones or something. It's not like it's like, oh, there's no way in.
Yeah.
See if you can find a fire alarm. That should open this thing right up. Like that doesn't happen. Yeah. And this guy, just for the record, like, you mentioned he's a Democrat in the U.S. House of Representatives for New York's 16th district. He started in January of 2021. He's not new to the building. He's not new to the door. He knows what's happening. Like, how are you in a scenario where you're just like, oh, I don't know how these doors work. You know how these fancy things are.
Yeah. Lock companies hate this one trick. Like a Facebook ad.
Right. Yeah, here's what they don't want you to know.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense, man. And and then you're defending it. How in the world could you? And keep in mind, just to be clear, just so you know, this is a guy that had a teaching career. That was his background before he got into politics.
Yeah.
So this is a man with a bachelor's degree and then has a master's and a doctorate. And he can't figure out. So you're going to tell me
book smart, not street smart.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's only one of two things that like ways that it can go down. Right? There's either option one, which is he very intentionally did this in a very shrewd way because he wanted to delay this vote and he knew exactly what he was doing. It's option one. Maybe unethical, clearly unethical, but whatever. Or option two, such a tremendous moron with a bachelor's, a master's, a doctorate, a background in teaching, who's been on the job for 2 years, but so incredibly mind-bogglingly stupid that he went and pulled the fire alarm. Do you realize if you or I went in and pulled the fire alarm in a government building, we would be arrested?
We would probably be shot on sight. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a good chance we would have been shot for causing, we would be locked up for 20 years.
Yes.
For inciting panic and chaos.
Yes.
It would have gotten us on terrorist charges. Again,
yes.
The people calling for his job and people calling for him to be arrested, I don't know. I'm just going to go with what everyone else is saying, that he's just a complete and total moron. Yeah. Like, the people defending it are defending the fact that he's an idiot. Like, that's what you're defending, because you're not saying that this guy was seditious and this guy was mean-spirited and was trying to cause panic and chaos. You're saying the dude was confused. He didn't know how to get the door open.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying this guy is an idiot.
Yeah, he's too stupid.
Yeah. So maybe you don't put him in jail. Maybe you don't fire him from his job, or, however you get him out. But really, he should be ridiculed at every given opportunity. Yeah. And he should have to be, like, someone should have to follow him. Like, he needs a chaperone to get from one building to the next building it's a probation thing. For the next 2 years, someone is specifically tasked with making sure that Jamaal Bowman gets where he needs to go without pulling random alarms.
Well, he needs to pay for it. It's not taxpayer money paying for his chaperone. Yeah. He needs to come out of his pocket.
He needs to hire someone to do that. I mean, and get them on Craigslist, wherever you need to. You're paying for it. I'm not going to tell you who to hire.
Yeah, exactly. It's your money.
But that's what needs to happen. My 7-year-old knows enough not to pull a fire alarm.
It is so ingrained.
Trigger. Yes.
It's so ingrained in your head from the time you're in school. And again, he's a teacher, so he literally worked in a school forever.
Yes.
Like, where they ran drills and stuff about what happens if there is accidentally a fire alarm, right? Like, we've done fire drills in school. You know exactly, like, hey, if you ever hear a fire alarm, you have to take it seriously. You know it's real. Don't panic.
Yeah.
Line up. We're going to go outside and be safe. This is a guy who ran those drills. Presumably, he was in a school.
Yes.
And this is a guy who's just like, well, I don't know. I can't get out. Like, and also,
did he panic?
I haven't seen the video I haven't watched the video over and over again. I really need to see, is there a moment in the video where he tried the door and it just wouldn't open? And then he was like, how much effort was expended to get through the door before the fire alarm pull happened?
Right,
because I think that's going to be
best and only option.
Yeah. Like, how long would I be standing there trying to get out of the door before I would pull the fire alarm? Unless the rest of the building was on fire behind me and I'm up against the door, like, there's no way that I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. This
fantastic. Again, yeah. And from kindergarten up until, I don't know, let's just say he taught for 10 years, for 40 years of his life. Like, he understood fire drills, understood how they worked, and understood if you pull it on the east side of the school, it's still going to trigger the alarm on the west side of the school.
Yeah. Because fires are known to spread.
They have a tendency to do that.
Stubbornly. They spread.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Just scary. And again, this guy is half the age that Dianne Feinstein was when she cast her last vote. So don't worry, folks. We're in good hands. We're in good hands now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking everywhere literally while we've been talking. I'm not finding the video of him. I see just the still photos, which is just him standing next to a door. I mean, it's clearly just like a regular push door. Like, there's nothing special about it. There's not even a handle on it. It's like one of the ones with the bar that runs straight across. You just push open. Like, is that? Yeah. He does not seem to be struggling at all with finding a way to get through that door.
He's like, my gosh, man, there's no chance I'm going to walk all the way back and go the other way. There has to be a better way to get out this door.
mean, come on. I don't know. We live in an incredibly stupid world.
Incredibly.
And it seems to get worse every day.
Every day.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, I think that's probably a good one to end on. I've raised my blood pressure enough tonight. And, I'm gonna go lay down and try to decompress.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
But yeah, listen. As always, we thank our global audience.
Yes.
We appreciate you tuning in. We do our best to entertain you. We will continue to try to improve. While you're out there, stay safe. Don't pull any fire alarms. And we will, just life advice.
Just a life advice. Life hack.
That's right. Just a life hack. Don't pull fire alarms. Actually, it would be a life hack if fire alarms open doors. Life hack. Pull fire alarms if you don't want to get through the door.
That's it.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
You don't want to walk around, just pull the fire alarm.
Yeah. Strange world we live in. But, I think this is probably what George Washington and Thomas Jefferson had kind of envisioned,
That's it. That's it. That's it.
There's true equality in this country when congressmen and senators of all races, creeds, and colors can struggle to get through doors equally. Well, the dream has come true now. So thank you, Jamaal Bowman, for proving to us that it's equal opportunity stupidity. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter your background, your level of education. It literally does not matter what your experience is in any way, shape, or form. You can.
Thank you also for clarifying that you should only call actual Nazis Nazis.
Yeah. He spent zero time defending what he did. Just like, hey, seriously, guys, I did not know about the Nazi thing.
Not cool.
That was really way out of left field. You can imagine my surprise. I just wanted to pull the fire alarm and get out of there. I was so embarrassed.
I was tired and I did not want to walk back up all them steps, man. It's normally open.
You don't know how difficult it is being me.
The people shouldn't be called Nazis if they're not really a Nazi.
Yeah, come on, guys. Be cool with the Nazi thing.
Be cool.
Don't just throw that around willy-nilly and just think that there's no fallout there. It's like, this guy, it's an episode of Seinfeld when George thought there was a fire because something was burning in the oven at the kid's birthday party, and he's like pushing the kids out of the way, pushing the old lady down and running out of the house. That's basically Jamaal Bowman is the George Costanza of the
we have
Senate.
To try and pull that clip and put that as one of our shorts. We could just somehow transpose Jamal's head on top of George's head.
We're so great.
That's hilarious.
All right. So anyway, we went off on a tangent there. But anyway, yes. Thank you, everybody. We will talk soon. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.